more they would all quickly align to the natural baselines of humanity, gender roles. The men would build and hunt, the women would gather and look after the sick, and then they'd survive. The closer you are to survival, the more important you are. The more important it is that you align to your gender role, because if you don't have a chance of survival. So in countries where it's harder to survive, the more traditionalistic. It's only in very, very privileged societies can we pretend that you do not need a man who can protect himself and others. That's a very privileged society, right? So I think when you have a hard life and you've lived a life on edge, you're naturally going to be inclining towards those things, towards reality and towards conservative values and towards traditionalism, because that gives you the highest chance of survival. I have the highest chance of survival if I focus on doing X and I am this type of person, and the woman next to me is this type of person. And that gives us the best chance. And that makes me a traditionally masculine male and her a traditionally feminine female, especially living a difficult life. Does that make sense? And especially in many parts of the world, that's still true today. In most of the world, that's still true today. We're talking on these podcasts to extremely privileged individuals who want to sit and throw away 98% of how the world functions to say it's bullshit and come up with this brand new thing they've invented for the last 15 years. And I say this often, I say, you find me dangerous that I said something that got me in a lot of trouble, so I'll say it again. I said that if I had to fly, if I was going to get on a plane that was going to fly through the eye of a hurricane, and there was a 50% chance of it crashing, I would prefer a male pilot than a female pilot. Feminists lost their mind, misogynistic. I said, no. I think that men are calmer under pressure. I'm not saying the pilot, assuming they have the same skill, I'm talking about just the pressure of the plane crashing. In my experience, men are calmer under mortal pressure than a woman would be. She might panic, and then we're definitely going to die. I'm not saying she would panic. I'm not saying all women would panic. I'm saying if I had to choose male pilot or female pilot for this semi-suicide mission, I would choose a male pilot. That's my life experience, right? Everyone will attack me for that, but that's just the life I've lived. By extension, if I had to drop my children off at nursery, I want to drop them at an all-female nursery. I'd never drop my 3-year-old or 4-year-old kid if I had one at an all-male nursery. That'd be weird. So to me, this is how most of the world still functions. This is how the Western world functioned until 10 or 15 years ago. And I say these things and I'm vilified. I truly believe I wouldn't be so popular and not so many people would resonate with me if large swaths of the population didn't go, well, yeah, that's kind of our point, I guess. I don't think it's that bad. I think a lot of the world is still quite conservative, even in the West. There's just a very, very vocal minority that have all the control of the narrative. They're trying to convince the world otherwise. I think the majority of even happy relationships, a man's a man, woman's a woman, I think that's pretty standard. Perhaps I'm wrong, but in my experience, certainly.
You know what I think would be interesting? You know, a lot of your audience, I mean, it's wide. You said 18 to 25-year-old men, women too.
Yeah.
I think it would be amazingly interesting if you sat down with a room of 80-year-olds.
Yeah.
80-year-old men and women. And you know what these people are called in America? They're older than baby boomers. You know what they're called, that generation. Traditionalists.
Oh, there you go.
Okay? I'd be very curious to know what old people would have to say about Tate. I doubt that any of the older women or the older men would try to be canceling Tate to be like, yeah, that's everything we've ever known.
But this is the thing that's interesting, because the feminist narrative, when I say things like the male pilot, for example, the feminist narrative is that I'm a controlling man who wants control over women. The actual truth is I'm a protective man who wants to protect. And being a man in a position of protecting is not always a good thing. I feel indebted and have a duty to myself and my honor, meaning that if I'm walking down the street with a beautiful woman and 3 men want to attack her, I have to risk my life now. I can't live my life letting my wife get gang raped on a fucking street and running away. I can't take it as a man. So I have to now die. I have to die. Or try. I have no choice. So, but that's my duty. But they'll ignore that part. They'll ignore the part where I risk my life, right? And they'll say, oh, but you just want to be controlling and misogynistic. No. I have a duty to protect. I'm calmer under pressure because I've been in more unfortunate situations. I've had more trauma in my life, which has trained me to be more calm under pressure. I would hate to meet a woman who's been through as much trauma as I have. That's not the kind of, that wouldn't make her a good woman. I don't think women need trauma at that level. I don't want women who've been stabbed. There's no need for that. But I have been through it. So I think that in my experience, extrapolation, that men who are successful, a lot of them have been through enough for me to trust them more in a high pressure situation. And like I said, this comes with massive responsibility. This comes with massive detriments and downsides. right? And the feminists are like, no, you're controlling them. It's not about control. It's about duty. There was no feminist on the Titanic. Then men can die. There's no feminists to this day in Ukraine. The Ukrainian women can leave. You'll see them partying in Warsaw and Prague. Ukrainian men can't leave the country. They're dying in a ditch. They have to stay and fight. Not a single feminist is demanding that the women stay and fight. Not a single one. They don't give a fuck when it turns real. Once it turns hot, then it's woohoo, straight to, what do you want, sandwich? Sure. Well, what do you want a sandwich, sir? What do you need? Then it all goes back. The closer you are to the real world, the closer people instantly get into their gender roles. Because otherwise they get annihilated in real time. That's another thing I said. When I was being called misogynistic and I was arguing with feminists, I said, traditionally men are the leaders. And in ancient societies, men were in charge. That's because men are oppressive, you've oppressed us forever. That's their narrative. Their narrative is that we've oppressed women forever. I said, no, you've protected and provided for you forever. The reason we are leaders is because if we align with our gender roles, a man's more likely to lead, and that gives us a more competitive chance. In the olden world, where all the empires were currently fighting, if you're not as competitive as possible, you're going to be annihilated. I would argue that perhaps there were some civilizations where women were in charge. But we don't know who they are, and we can't discuss their history because they were fucking annihilated in real time by the ones where the men were in charge. Because you are hyper-competitive. You're at your optimum when men are in charge. That's just the optimum of the gender roles. That's the way it really works. I don't believe we've been oppressing you since the dawn of human time. I disagree. I believe we've been working hard, protecting, providing for you. If men were truly oppressive to women, why don't we send the women to war? Women on women, it's fair, right? We can send all the women to war in Ukraine, all the women to war in Russia, they can die, but we can sit and we can chill, we can go to Warsaw and drink vodka. We don't do that. The men of Ukraine and the men of Russia are dying to protect their women. And then they want to sit and say that we're bad? It's a completely skewed worldview. Whenever they come along and say that we're oppressive and that we have the most money and all this bullshit, it's a lie. We are going out of our way and giving up our lives to protect and provide. And this is where it comes to some of the other things that they said against me. I've said, a man has a degree of authority over something he has responsibility for. They took this and used it and said that I think that men have authority over women. Not what I said. I said if I have responsibility for something, I must have a degree of authority over that thing. If I have a car, for it to be parked in the wrong place or for me to drive too fast, whatever, for me to be responsible for the actions of that car, it must be my car. If it's parked in the wrong place but it's not mine and I'm not allowed to drive it, then I'm not held accountable. For me to be accountable, I have to have responsibility. By extension, that gives me a degree of authority. So what I was saying is, if a woman comes to me and lives with me, and I pay the bills, and she travels the world with me, and she flies on jets, and we go to boats, and she's taken care of, responsible for her safety if we walk the street at night, I am sure her life is in perfect order. I have a degree of authority where I can say, you're not going to go out at night by yourself, it's dangerous. Or, we're not going to go to this country right now, it's dangerous. That's a degree of authority that I have that comes with my responsibility from a protective manner. That does not mean I am oppressive. That does not mean I'm misogynistic. It just means that responsibility and accountability are linked, and they can't be decoupled. A captain goes down with the ship because the captain is responsible for what happens on the ship. If the captain gives orders and everyone ignores him, then he doesn't go down with the ship, does he? He has authority because he is responsible. Two things are the same. And once again, people have misunderstood what I said. That's what I said. In a healthy relationship, perhaps in my relationships, I'll talk from a personal perspective so that I can't be attacked. In my relationships, I am responsible for the emotional security, for the physical security, and the fiscal responsibility, the fiscal security of any woman I'm with. And by extension, I have a degree of authority over her to make sure that we, as a couple, proceed and progress in the best possible way. It's not going to be 50-50 if I'm in charge of the most important things. You're like, listen, I love you very much, I respect what you're saying, and you're totally right about this, but on this one point, I'm sorry, I'm going to be the man to do this.
Well, you got in trouble, because, by the way, we're here, like, I think we're all here, but you got in trouble because the analogy you use is like, you compare women to children or to animals and say, I have a responsibility over my child or over my dog, and then people take the short clip and like, do you think that women are like children or women like animals?
Well, the children one was actually interesting. That was a slightly different one. With children, I was making a joke, and it was semi-satirical, but like all my things, I'm not allowed to make jokes anymore, because Zuckerberg has set delete. But I made a joke saying that when I travel quickly, I like to travel with just men. If I'm going to a place for a week, I'll take women, fine. But if I have to hit, let's say, 4 countries in 2 days on the jet, I like to only take men. And they said, why? I said, well, and it was a joke. We were all sitting on a podcast. I said, well, traveling with a woman's like traveling like kids. They get hungry, they have bags, they need the toilet. With men, it's just military. In, out, boom, no sleep. In, out, boom, no sleep. Pack the bag, no sleep. On the jet, no sleep, no sleep. No. You're going to be military, you get it done. That's what I said, right?
Remember Marino?
Okay,
Like,
that's what I said.
Yeah,
When I take my girlfriend, she's like, oh, we haven't slept in 2 days. I'm really, really hungry, Andrew. You need it. Like, oh, so am I. Like, it's just different. So, and that gets taken out of context, and they don't accept it's a joke. It's a joke. To a degree, it's a joke. I mean, I still mean what I say, but to a degree, it's a joke. The analogy upsets them.
And question for you.
Sure.
How much, like, the story told about, one day you come home, your dad comes up to you and says, Andrew, I'll see you in a couple of weeks, and he's out, right? In the context of what happens when there's a conflict and we all react in 3 different ways: fight, flight, freeze.
Yeah.
In that context, your dad is flight.
Yeah.
He runs up and says, I don't want to deal with it. I'm out of here. I'm going to do my own thing. Okay.
Yeah.
America, a lot of that is happening right now, where it's a single parent household. Kids are being raised without a mom and dad being there, and it's just one mom, mom trying to do both, and these boys, my mom couldn't tell me what to do once my parents got a divorce.
Yeah.
I'm a single mother raising me. I'm seeing my dad every other week, so it's not like he has direct influence to discipline me until I went into the military.
Yeah.
How much of that, like if you were to go back and think about, what if your dad didn't take the flight approach? What if your dad took the fight approach? What if your parents were together? Would it have made a difference in you? And how do you view, the idea of fathers being there with mom and dad together, family nucleus? Because a lot of times, marriage no longer has, the what it once had. Kids are better off being raised with a mom and dad. How do you process that yourself? Because you became successful not being in that environment.
Right.
So do you see this as well? It depends. There's exceptions to the rule. How do you process it?
I think it's a fantastic environment, and I think in an idealistic world, that's the way it would be. I think the reason it's not happening today is that I don't think many men actually benefit from marriages or relationships anymore. And people are always going to have to require some degree of incentive. I think that we've set up the world now in a way where men are seen as worker droids. They're expected to go work all day, come home, clean up as well, share the cleaning with the woman, no meal prepared for them, not have any authority over the household, and just be a worker droid and be a sad. And I don't think that many people understand that men are intrinsically wired to desire respect amongst our peers and in our environments. This is why CEOs work so hard, because they get respect in their company. This is why we all want so much money and fast cars and status and influence, because we're respected. Men desire respect like we desire oxygen. And if a man's coming home to a household where he doesn't feel any respect, he's not going to want to be there for very long. And I think the way you fix this is you need to understand that men don't have an incentive to be in the house. I think that it's actually would be quite easy for a woman. In fact, there's a couple women who even say this on YouTube. I can't remember their names, but it'd be quite easy for a woman to make a man really happy with a super basic thing. Just go up to your husband and say, hey, you know more about this. What do you think about this? It would make most men's world. And there's so many sexless marriages out there where men work their ass off and they come home to a sexless marriage and kids don't fucking even like them. If you were to just even ask him this question about some asinine bullshit, a lawnmower purchase, he would feel so happy to feel like the man of the house. That's what men need. They need to feel like all this work I'm putting in, all this shit I'm going through, I'm respected for it. As soon as a man feels like he has no respect, that's the absolute end of a man's interest or a man's tolerance of the situation. I think that's the reason it's happening. I know a lot of men who completely love their wives. They love them with all their heart. They die for her. But he's just not respected in this house. He doesn't get to be the man of the house.
Is it on him or is it on her? Like, does he need to go earn it, or is it on her to provide it?
It's a combination of both. I think it's certainly on him to earn it, but also the Matrix programming is captured. Matrix programming is trying to tell him that he shouldn't be allowed to be the man of the house, that he shouldn't be allowed to have any kind of authority in any regard. He shouldn't be allowed to be able to say what happens. The Matrix programming is saying the absolute opposite all the time. If that's getting into your woman and you don't have that much influence, and that's getting to all your children, you don't have that much influence, now you're coming home to a household where everyone just thinks you're the dude that should just fucking work. You're just the worker droid, you're the slave, you're the robot, and your feelings don't matter and your authority doesn't matter, and get fucked. And this is very conscious. If you watch any Netflix show, the mother is the smart one, and the man is the bumbling idiot. Turn on a show, I dare you, turn on a family show. The mother is the one, hey, calm down, I'm smart, and the man's doing, ooh, beat her. watch any of these shows. They're
Family
trying
Guy, The
all of it,
Simpsons, Married with Children,
any of it, all of it.
Modern Family.
They're reducing the man to just